This video is all about the wing mirror motor and housing on a Mercedes SL500 or SL55. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to separate this plastic bit from the black plastic. It's a lot harder than it looks and not at all intuitive. And you may need to do that if you ever damage your wing mirror and you get a second-hand one off eBay where it's not color coordinated or color matched to your car. The other thing that we're going to do is we are going to change the motor in this mechanism here, just the motor. And in order to do so, we're going to have to take off the worm gear off the old motor and put it on our new motor. So I'll be showing you how to do that. We're going to have a go at swapping the motor in this mirror. And the first thing we need to do is put the window down. Next up, you are going to remove this piece of trim here. Just pulls back and pulls up. Next, you're going to twist this up, pull it out, and reveal a Torx 20, I think, screw in there. You're going to put a magnet on the screwdriver to avoid dropping that screw. There are 6 Torx screws to get this piece of trim here off. Now, incidentally, if you didn't know this, if you drove the car without this piece of trim on, you would get a big fat red warning light, because this actually covers the sensor here to show you that the door is shut. You know of how this rubber trim goes on the outside of that panel. If you put it on the inside of the panel, you won't get an airtight, watertight seal on your door. Pulls straight off once you've got the screws out. I'm going to take this mirror out first so that I don't accidentally break it when I take this whole section off. Put the mirror towards you, and if you've got a trim set tool, you can just lever that out. Not use a screwdriver with some tape wrapped around it, or a wooden implement from the kitchen while your wife's not looking. Lucky you'll be able to do that without breaking any of the clips, but remember there are still a couple of wires behind there which we're going to take off. Don't pull them by the wire. Get a flat blade screwdriver underneath the plug and lever them up. The plug can be super difficult to get out. It's got no clips on it. I'm just using this special little trim tool to push it out evenly. If I've undone those 3 plugs, the mirror should just come away. We'll put that somewhere safe. We're going to undo the clips that hold the door panel to the door. We're going to start in this corner here and just pull away. We'll be using a little plastic trim tool to make our life slightly easier. Once you've popped all those clips, you're going to lift the door up about 1 inch. And that is going to reveal the door mechanism, which you're just going to unclip from there and unhook. Once you've unclipped that, you're going to very carefully unhook the door. And then it's still attached by a load of wires, and you're going to undo those wires. If you're just taking the door mirror off, you just need to unplug these 2 things here. You don't need to unplug all the other wires, although those wires are quite easy to unplug. They only go in one way, so if you want to get the door panel out the way to avoid damaging it, do that by all means. Once you've unplugged those 2 door mirror plugs, there are just 3 Torx screws holding the mirror on. Take out 2 of them. When you take out the last one, remember to hold the mirror so it doesn't fall off and break. These screws, when you take them out, have got a little gasket at the bottom, then they've got a cup washer, and then they've got a rubber weather seal there. Don't lose any of those little bits. Got those 3 screws out. This mirror will just lift off. It may seem daunting taking the door panel off and taking your mirror off. That whole process took less than 10 minutes. Obviously, I've done it before, so I know what I'm doing, but less than 10 minutes to get to this stage. And that is what I describe as the easy bit. The hard bit is figuring out how this mechanism attaches to here. So I'm going to have a little look at that and see if I can work that out. Now, to separate this, what I'm using is one of these trim tools here and putting it under there, and it'll come out with a loud pop. But you want to have the mirror in the out position. It looks impossible to do, but it does actually work. Now, to put this back together again, the first thing you're going to do is thread the wires through like that. Then you're going to wiggle and twist this so that you end up with something looking like this. Okay, so you'll see this little nodule at the front here. Now you're going to have to push that down over this ridge here, and to help it along, I suggest you put a little dab of grease or oil. The most important part of this job is to make sure your wife is out so she cannot see you doing this in the house. What you have to try and do is get this in this position so that you've got that bit there like that. And then once you've done that, you should just be able to push down like that, and the thing will just click into place. So it just arrived from Turkey a few days after ordering it, about 4 or 5 days to get here, is what I hope will be a motor to fit this SL55 wing mirror. It's from a company called Bros Auto Parts in Turkey. So here's the motor we took from the car. They're both almost exactly the same size, apart from the worm gear on here is slightly different. The way I'm going to get this spiral off is I'm just going to use a standard pair of wire trimmers, and that's going to allow me to clasp the shaft at the top there, just like that. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to clamp these to our table here and just use a set of mole grips to clamp them. So we can start off by tapping that out, hopefully. Once you've got to that level, you can then just use a pair of pliers to get that. So this is our good motor from Turkey. We took the spiral off. That was the wrong spiral. And we just need to tap this spiral on there. So we've got that spiral on and everything fits as it should. Now, the only thing that concerns me slightly is that that motor is wired differently. So what we may have to do is just swap the polarity of the wires on the actual car, which is not ideal, but it's not the end of the world. So in the first instance, let's just put this whole thing back together. There should be a little bearing race. And then next up, this ring goes on top. We'll just click the case on. Next up, we're going to put these little metal contacts in. And this motor can fit in here. Now, there should be a little plastic sheath in there, in case yours fell out. Once you've got that on, you should be able to thread those contacts through there like so and click that down, and I think from memory this can fit in afterwards. Just remember, these are going to be angled over this way. Doesn't matter exactly the position of that. And finally, we're just going to snap this piece in over to keep everything in place. And then we'll just test that on the mirror and make sure that that is looking like it's in the correct position. So this should be somewhere there so that it clicks nice and firmly into position like so, which it does. Now, using the same Heath Robinson arrangement that we had in the last video, it should just be a matter of tapping that in. Now, when we undo that bolt, that should all be beautifully locked in place. And all we have to do is cut those cable ties with a scalpel, and that should tighten the whole thing up. Okay, we've got those out. One little bit we couldn't get out, but that's not a tragedy. Next up, we just need to reverse the polarity. And I think, or I'm hoping, that'll just be a case of opening up this plug if that's possible, and just swapping those two wires around. Interestingly enough, that's actually a VW Audi plug. It's even got a part number on it. Just before I take this plug to pieces, I'm just going to put a little bit of masking tape around one of the wires, and these are marked 1 and 2, so that is around the right hand wire, which is currently marked number 2. Now, to get this plug to pieces, there's a little catch in the middle of it, just there. You just have to lift up with a little watchmaker screwdriver. Here, you just have to prise these wires out very carefully and swap them over. And click that switch back together. And that should be the job done. Let's put this car back together and see what happens when we try and do the electric fold-in mirrors. Now, the one thing I haven't considered is obviously different motors have different windings and operate at different speeds, etc. So it'd be intriguing to see if this actually works. If you are going to take the door card off for any reason, my advice would be to get some clips before you start the job. The first time we did it, we didn't break any. The second time, we broke 2 or 3 of them. Now, these clips come with the little black rubber gaskets as well. That's the part number there. And the cheapest place I've found to get them is Mercedes. They're not that expensive, and I'll leave a link at the end to how much we paid for them. It's dead easy to get out. They just slide out like so. And the new ones will just slide in like that. The trim clips, the door panel trim clips supplied by Mercedes have got 4 little legs on them, whereas the cheap and cheerful ones you get from eBay tend to have 2 legs. And the other point is, when you buy them from Mercedes, they'll have this rubber gasket on which stops you damaging the paintwork. I'm going to cover putting the door panel on in any great detail because we did it in the last video, but the plugs go in first, and then this gets threaded through the hole. You just need to connect the door lever, and this here is where the door hooks into. There's one other as well. These are these hooks here, and the other one is here, which hooks through there. So the door card has to be lifted up first and then gently pushed down. Got all the plugs in. You should just be able to hook the door over, connect this up here, thread that through. Once you've connected this up, you're going to end up with a situation like this. Next, you've got to thread those center little hooks in, push them in and push the door down, and that should leave all of these little red clips here aligned with the holes. Click the door in place. Just remember to put that screw in, don't over tighten it. Put a magnet on the screwdriver to avoid you dropping it down that hole, which would be highly annoying. Little airbag symbol back on, lock it in place, and then you just got to put this end plate on. When you come to put this door panel on, make sure that this seal is on the outside of it all the way around. It's very easy just to cover that seal up, and my advice would be to start with the bottom screw and align that first before you put all the others in. So put them in loosely first. So now, moment of truth. Those error messages just because I haven't put the outer cover on yet. Let's see if that mirror folds in. And it does. For the first time since I've owned this car, we can lock it and the wing mirrors fold in without any creaking. I'm going to finish the video here and just let you know where we got the motor from, where you can get those panel clips from, and how much they cost. We got our motor from these guys here, Bros Auto Parts, based out in Turkey. Now, I was concerned because Turkey's going through a terrible time at the moment economically, but these guys priced everything in US dollars. It cost us $13.50 to buy the motor and $14 to ship it to DHL, and their communication was excellent. I sent them several emails and they always answered really quickly. We tried a couple of motors before we found the right one. This is the one that we used in the end, the 671. Had the right shaft length and shaft diameter. The worm gear on the end wasn't right, but it's quite easy to knock that off. The most important thing is that the pins were correct, in the correct position. To make sure that the shaft is the right length and now also the right thickness. They're pretty much all the same thickness, but the lengths do vary, as do those plug sockets. You can also get these motors in China, and they're not very expensive. However, it does take quite a while to get here. We ordered one several weeks ago and it's still not here. Those trim clips came from Mercedes. That's the part number there. And they're not expensive. I think £1.50 each. We bought 5 of them. Came to a total of £9, including the VAT.